This fabulous double bass was made by Neuner and Hornsteiner. There's two main centres of violin making in Germany. So you've got Mark Neukirchen, which is, I think, maybe sometimes the lower quality instruments. The new instrument, obviously for new instruments is different. Everyone's kind of making very good quality everywhere. But the older instruments, the instruments from Mark Neukirchen were, I think, a bit more factory kind of grade, maybe not quite as nice. This is a Mittenwald bass. So the Mittenwald makers, if you look into the history of German violin making, it's fascinating. There's loads of different families. I mean, they go on and on and on, and they sort of marry to get across each other. It's quite similar to France and Michael, but they all kind of married into different families and formed different little companies and things like that. The one thing I would say about the Mittenwald makers is that the quality of what they produced, although it was kind of in a factory setting and they produced them in quite high numbers, the quality is generally always excellent. Particularly Neuner and Hornsteiner. There's a bunch of other families. You've got Rieger, you've got Klotz, you've got Bader. I mean, there's loads of these things, and the thing is, they can often look very, very similar. So they would have had a load of different workers working and making different parts, etc., but they would have been sold under that banner. This is a really late one, so I'd say probably it's somewhere between 1870 and 1885. Again, they're quite hard to date because they're always very similar. But this is a stunner. I mean, if we start with the head, it's a really typical, well-carved double bass head. So it's got three of the really lovely original tuners. So they're really beautifully made, very typical. One thing that's always similar on these basses generally is I always think that the button here looks a bit unfinished, like it doesn't it's not rounded off or chamfered or anything. It's the same at the bottom and a little bit up the sides. I always think it looks a bit unfinished, but they're all very, very similar. Usually that is what they're like. So this obviously has been converted to 4 strings. The front of the bass, again, this little sort of finished bit, sort of bit here that's flat. At the top, that's very typical Stradivarian style sound holes. Very elegantly cut, and the wood on the front of this bass is spectacular. Really, really nice fine-grained spruce. It's got a really nice figure in it. I mean, this is as good as it gets, really. We'd love to have wood like this available all the time now, let alone when this was carved. The front's in perfect condition. Another interesting thing that you find a lot with these basses is that the front will be purfled most of the time. So this has obviously got a purfled front, but the back is unpurfled, really normal. So you see that all the time, and it's not even a question of the higher grades they were purfled, just generally they tend to always be normal. You can see as well that it's got this dark line down the middle, which is usually ebony or very dark wood. I think what this does, or what this did, because they all seem to have it, 99% of them seem to have this dark strip, is I think it kind of created a place where if the back was going to move a little bit, it kind of allowed it to move, but also it was make it much easier to fix. If you've got, it's much easier to say, fix something if you've got this dark line down the middle. But a lot of them seem to have it. You'll also see that it's inlaid. So very often what you've got is it's not all the way through. It's actually like a strip inlaid in there. I think it looks really nice. The other thing that this is a beautiful example of is the varnish, which again is usually very similar. I mean, you've got varying colours but what it tends to be, and this one is maybe not that red. You can get them where they're really red. I really like that. This is slightly less red, but what you've got is this incredible golden ground coat that's really well sealed in there. And then laid over the top of it is a real thick red-brown varnish. As I say, this is slightly red-brown, but I would say that you can often see them a bit more red, and they're my favourite ones. But doesn't mean to say this bass isn't absolutely gorgeous, and the condition is incredible. It's an absolute beauty. So sounds great. And yeah, it's a really nice example of a sort of late 19th century Mittenwald bass.